Hello everybody, I'm SnipingIsFun, and in today's video I'm going to be bringing all of you on YouTube a review of the movie Wolf Children by Mamoru Hasoda, the same creator of likely anime movies that you may have seen, Summer Wars and The Girl Who Leapt Through Time. Wolf Children is his latest entry, his latest creation, and today I'm going to be giving my review on this movie and my general thoughts, a user review on this movie, having watched it twice in both English and Japanese, to the point where I feel I can give a fairly honest review from both perspectives, kind of comparing the dubs and just looking at the movie itself as a whole. I'm going to review this movie, and the first thing I'm going to be starting off with is going to be the plot, the story of it. And just to let you know, unlike my 5 scenes from this movie I'll remember, if you've seen that movie, this review will contain no spoilers. I hope you guys enjoy it. The first topic I'm going to talk about in this review is going to be the plot, the story of the movie. Essentially, it takes place in a college setting in Japan, like the University of Tokyo, where a schoolgirl, a college student girl at the school, Hana, ends up meeting a mysterious man in which she actually kind of grows a relationship with. And eventually down the line, and this isn't a spoiler, because this has been in all the trailers, it's the main plot point of the movie, so I'm going to say it anyways. She finds out that this guy is a wolf man. He's like the last remaining member of this wolf tribe that died out like 100 years ago, and she ends up falling in love with him regardless. She doesn't care the fact that he's part wolf, and they eventually get together and have 2 kids, Ame and Yuki. Yuki being the older sister, Ame being the younger brother. They're about almost a year split apart. Shortly after the father dies, which is shortly after Ame is born, he dies trying to hunt for food for his newborn baby. And she's left to raise her kids, both her kids, alone. And it's basically like a student who, she was like a younger student in college. I think she was like 19 years old. And then she was with him for about a year or 2, and she had these 2 kids, and now first off, she hasn't been a mother for very long, and now with her lover, Okami, at least that's what people nickname him, since that means wolf. He doesn't really get a full-on name in the movie. If I do refer to him, it's either going to be Okami or the Wolf Man. Essentially, with him dead, it leaves her as a single mother. So first off, she's a new mother of 2 young toddlers, 2 babies, 2 new kids that are not only human, but they're also part wolf. So the story basically takes place in her trying to raise these kids, study books and on both humans and wolves, as being a mother, to try to raise these kids as both, and then eventually, which leads them to her taking her kids and moving out to the countryside. And then basically that's where the majority of the movie takes place, her raising her kids and basically giving them the choice to, okay, do you want to be human or do you want to be wolf? And the majority of the movie deals with their adventures in that countryside house that they move out to, and the neighbors they meet, and the various events that happen to Yuki and Ame as they get older and as they come of age, to the point where they're able to choose, do they want to be a wolf or do they want to be human? And that's basically the main story, the main plot points of the movie, without going into spoilers. And basically it's just the events of her meeting this man, the wolf man, having kids with him dying shortly after they have their second kid, Ame, and her having to be faced with the challenge of raising these 2 kids on her own as a single mother, but not just 2 normal human kids, but 2 wolf children. So she has to learn how to raise wolves on top of raising children. So it's a challenge for her to come and face this challenge to take care of her two kids, and it's also these two kids being raised up and living their lives and then coming of an age where they're able to choose what they want to be. And that's basically the main story, the main plot, without going into any spoilers, of Wolf Children. The next point I'm going to basically be talking about will be the characters of the movie. Mainly 6 of them. Majority of the characters are very very minor characters that you meet, like the other mothers that Hana meets when she moves out to the countryside, the kids that Yuki and Ami meet at school, the neighbors, and various other people. The main 6 characters in this movie are basically Hana, Ame and Yuki, her kids, the Wolfman, their father, her mate, Nirasaki, I think his name was, an old man that when they move out to the countryside, she essentially gets help from when he helps her raise her garden, make sure her garden turned out well. He normally supposedly turns away, that's a kind of minor spoiler there. It's very minor though. It's nothing major. He looks like this cranky old man that pushes away like people that move out there, but he kind of helps her out. And then Sohei, which is a student that Yuki meets in school. Basically, Hana's like the tough mother type character. She's basically faced with the challenge of having to raise 2 wolf children. So she basically, majority of the movie is about her facing this challenge, reading up on books, talking to people maybe about when she gets into the countryside about how to raise her garden, and she has to basically do all of this stuff on her own to raise these 2 kids. So it's essentially from step 1, trying to learn how to raise kids and trying to learn how to raise them also as wolves, so they know both heritages of themselves. Their dad's wolf side and her human side, even though technically the dad's part human as well. But I'm not going to go into that far in depth on that, but him getting the wolf heritage from him, the human heritage from her, trying to raise them as a single mother, and her facing the challenges of rebuilding their house, and all the heart and effort and everything she puts into taking care of her kids, because basically they are her life at this point. You don't really see any parents of hers or any of her family at all. She's basically, she basically makes it, like when she's talking to the Wolfman, her mate, you hear about how her dad died when she was young, and you don't really hear anything about her mother, so her mother's either not in the picture at all, or she has also died, and she has no immediate family to go seek help from. And also, basically, due to the fact that they are wolf children, she really can't seek help from other people, because if they find out, you never know what might actually happen. There it comes to the extent of, she wants to hide their wolf side, and that's why she goes out to the countryside to protect them, because she doesn't know what could happen if people find out. But she also doesn't have anyone to really search for help from. The only one that she would have had help from would have been, the Wolfman would have been, Okami, but he unfortunately dies trying to, find food for the kids. And Okami is basically like this mysterious man. Like, you don't really know much about him except for the fact he's part of the wolf tribe, and he was told basically to hide it from people. But he trusts Hana enough to give her his secret. And you basically just see this really close relationship. Like, he can trust her a lot, and then she kind of trusts him a lot, and they eventually fall in love because of that. Ame and Yuki, when it comes to the kids, Yuki's the older sister and Ame's the younger brother. They're only split by about a year. Ame's more of the, and not to go into when they're older though, that would kind of spoil stuff, so I'm not going to talk about the character development when they're older, but I'll talk about how they are when they're younger. Yuki's more of the rough house, tomboy girl wanting to go catch animals and use her wolf side, and that's Yuki. And Ame is basically the younger brother who's more attuned to his human side, wanting to be by his mother, considered by his sister to be weak, and he's scared, and he's not really talkative. He's not really outgoing, basically. So he's more human, and Yuki's more wolf. They basically Yuki takes on human characteristics, and Ame does like being the wolf too, but they kind of have their split sides on what they want to be. even though that's a minor spoiler. I'm not trying to go too much. I'm talking about stuff that mainly happens in the beginning of the movie. None of this. I'm not trying to refer to anything that happens later on. And basically, when it comes to two other characters, I want to say Narasaki. He's basically like this mysterious, like, old man that doesn't really like to show his emotions, but he does do stuff in the story to help out the family. And Sohei is basically this new kid that moved into the school, and she eventually becomes friends. He eventually becomes, why I say she? I was probably talking about Yuki. He eventually becomes friends with Yuki and her friends. And basically their close relationship. And basically all the characters in this movie kind of interact off each other. It is a very big family and friend-based, family-oriented film. Like, the relationship between Hana and her kids Ame and Yuki and her lost lover, Okami, the Wolfman, and basically how Ame and Yuki are left without a father and she has to raise them on their own, so there's a very tight relationship between them, and like, but also a tight relationship with the neighborhood that they move into on the countryside, because eventually they meet up with all these other different people. They go out there to be alone, they meet up with a ton of different people, and basically that's the characters. They're all good characters. They all have positive and negative qualities to them that kind of show you how humanistic Hosoda actually made his characters. They're very human. Like, they have positive and negative qualities. They're not totally positive or not totally negative. You can see positives and negatives, and that is true about every single human in the world. Like, every person basically has those kind of qualities, and they use those qualities to have their character development and prosper in their lives. They use it to move on and grow up and mature and become the people they become by the end of the movie. And the interactions between these characters, regardless of being positive or negative, or secluded or open or whatever, shows how realistic of an environment the entire cast, namely those 6 characters, are in this movie, Wolf Children. The next thing I'm going to be talking about in this review is going to have to do with the sound of the movie. Not just the voice acting in both the English and Japanese versions, but also the orchestral, the instrumental music that you hear in the backgrounds through most of the movie. Now, I'm going to start off with that aspect of this. There's a lot of very orchestral, very instrumental points in this movie where the background, like, they show scenes, and most of the time characters aren't talking because they're putting an emphasis on you looking at this scene, you looking at the environment, and this sound that just plays over it, like kind of like an orchestral, like I said, instrumental music that fits the tone. Most of the music in this movie fits the tone, fits the environment, fits the setting, fits the mood very well. When there's a sad moment, they play sadder music. When it's happy, they play happier music. Like anger, some sort of conflict, every different emotion, every different setting, on that happy, sad type of thing, the music plays very well. So when you're watching it, you're seeing these characters talk, you're seeing these characters interact with each other, and the background music, even when whether they're talking or not, but even when they're talking, goes with the mood so well, regardless if it's English or Japanese. And when it comes to the end credits song, when it comes to the song that's basically at the end credits, not trying to spoil what it's about or something like that, if you're not emotional by the time you get to that song, by the end of the movie, if something in the movie didn't bring a tear to your eye, if something in the movie didn't get some sort of emotion out of you, that song I feel mostly did, because it did for me both times when I watched it in English and Japanese. The song in this end song in this movie is, in my opinion, probably my favorite song of the movie, besides a certain scene in the movie, which I'm not going to spoil for you, but basically it's a very big scenery scene with no one talking, and the song, and the sound, this orchestral, instrumental music, I liked quite a bit. Now, when it comes to the voice acting, I watched it in both English and Japanese because I felt that was the only way I could really give a fair review of this movie. Like, I recently just, like 2 days ago, watched the Japanese version, but I watched like almost a little over a week ago, I watched the English version. The first time I watched it. First time I watched it was English, then I watched it in Japanese. So I felt that's the only way I could really give a fair, review on this thing. I thought both the English and Japanese voice actings were done well, especially for the family, Hana, Yuki, and Ame. Um, Especially them, like both when the kids are older and when the kids are younger, and Hana throughout the entire movie, they got some fairly good voice actors that could show emotions regardless of what the scene is. If they're angry, or if they're happy, if they're sad, these voice actors. And take in mind, I'm not big on really. I don't understand much Japanese, so I can't really picture it out as much because I don't understand exactly what they're saying. I have to read subtitles to actually understand mostly what they're saying. But you can feel, even in the Japanese version, very, very emotional, just like the English version. Sometimes more, sometimes less. Like certain versions, I think, excel at certain parts of the movie. Like I said, though, the voice acting, they got some good people to voice act, and the voice acting, I don't think I heard any bad voice actors in either dub. I think they did. I think the people they got for both dubs, I think, did a fairly good job on it. So in the music department, in the sound department, like I said, the dub, regardless if you're watching it English or Japanese, you're going to get a good dub. So no matter which one you want to watch, or if you want to watch both, you're going to get an interesting experience regardless. And as for the actual background music, the actual music of the movie, I think it fit the mood fairly well. The scenery in the actual movie, all the music they basically do from start to finish goes with the tone, goes with the mood of that scene. The ending credits theme, which is actually kind of the intro theme too, partially, fits the mood of it as well, especially when you actually look at the subtitles and see what the song's talking about. So yeah, I think the sound of this movie was very, very well done. The fourth thing I'm going to talk about in this movie, about for the movie, is going to be the actual art style, the design of Wolf Children. If I've only seen very few other works from Mamoru Hasoda. Like I did see Summer Wars. I do want to see The Girl Who Left Me Time. I have yet to see that movie, and he did work on some old, some of the older Digimon movies and whatnot too. So his art style kind of, just like it goes through, kind of goes through those movies. His art style is very similar in a lot of his movies. A lot of the movies, whether he's a director, producer, or whatever, whatever position he is, his art direction actually is very similar. It's fairly simplistic, but it can have a lot of detail to it too. And most of the time, his art style, like I was talking about in the sound department, when you're looking at the scenery is a big, big part of this movie. Like, you're going to be seeing all these mountainscapes, these city scenes, these towns, like all these, like especially the mountain, because especially most of the later part of the movie actually has to deal with out being in the countryside, out not in the city. But all the scenery is so beautiful, well done, artistic. You're going to be looking at it when all this music's playing, regardless if you're hearing people talking or not. Like, you're going to be focusing on a story, but your eye is also going to be caught to the background scenery as well. And all the characters have simplistic but yet detailed, looks to them. When they're farther away, they're not as detailed. When they're closer up, you can see more looks on their face, more detail in their clothes, the character themselves. So it's like a mix of being simplistic, but also being detailed. Like his style, like it goes through his movies, just like how Miyazaki has his similar, art style designs you see through all of his movies, all the other Studio Ghibli movies too. But like I said, Mamoru Hosoda has a very similar art style in Wolf Children. Like, if you've seen Summer Wars, if you've seen The Girl Who Left Through Time, it has a very, very similar art style to that. And it becomes it's a nice animated movie to look at. Not just to watch, but just to look at. The characters and the scenery. And for Wolf Children, like I said, that's basically my thoughts on the design of it. Now I'm going to give my final thoughts on the movie Wolf Children. Unlike how I used to do reviews in the past, like when I did video game reviews, I used to do scores. I'm not going to do that here. I'm just going to basically talk about my final thoughts on it, and I'm going to let you know if you should watch the movie or not. My final thoughts on the movie Wolf Children is I really enjoyed it. I was looking forward to this movie for months, since I originally seen like some of the pictures of like Yuki and Ame on Funimation's Facebook months ago, and then looking up all these trailers on YouTube back like at the end of last year. I've been looking forward to this movie for a long time. When I finally saw it at Best Buy, I was like, I have to pick this up. I cannot wait to pick this up, or it's going to be disappearing on me. But like I said, it's a very interesting. Wolf Children is a very interesting movie. It's very like Hosoda's films. Like, they're very family oriented. They're very friend oriented. They're very like people oriented and based in real life situations. Like, but you do get interesting little like nods here or there. Like in Summer Wars, you had the World of Oz and like that whole computer connected world. And even though I had not seen The Girl Who Looked Through Time, it has time travel. This movie has, the wolf people, the wolf children, wolf transformations, wolf people, people, animal transformation based stuff. It has a smidge of fantasy, like his movies, but they have a lot of real life situations. It's basically a coming of age story for both, not only the mother Hana having to raise these two kids, but also for Yuki and Ame, who have to be raised as wolf children. So they have two sides of their life that they get to choose. Which side do I want to live, or do I kind of want to maybe find a way in the middle? Or they get a choice, and they have to be raised as kids, but also have these aspects, these instincts of being a wolf that they basically have to put up with and live with too, and have to deal with this growing up and coming of age story for them. And it's a very interesting story. It's very, very emotional. There's going to be happy scenes, funny scenes, sad scenes, scenes where there's anger shown. There's going to be conflict between some of these characters. It's very, very interesting, and you, more than likely, some scene in this movie is going to make you emotional. Some scene in this movie is going to get to you. I can guarantee you that. But Wolf Children, it's fairly nicely done. It has a good pacing, pretty much for the most part, from beginning to end. You see the life of Hana raising her kids as they get older, the conflicts they meet, and all the stuff that gets settled at the end. And when it's over with, you wish it would go on further. There's nothing you want to cut out, but there's a lot more you want to see added. There's more after this movie. You want to know what happens to Ame, what happens to Yuki, what happens to Sohei, what happens to Hana, what happens to that Mr. Nirasaki, like all these other and all these side characters, mainly the main characters, but you want to know about the side characters too and what their lives are. Especially, like I said, Hana, Ame, Yuki, and I'm going to mainly throw Sohei in here because he becomes a major character in this movie too. You want to know, you want to see further, but this movie, it comes to an end, it comes to a conclusion, you get an ending, but I will tell you this, it kind of leaves you wanting more, and that's kind of like what I think Hosoda does for his movies too, because not as much as this movie, but I did get that feeling from Summer Wars, you want to see a little further, you want to see it go, but this movie especially goes in that direction. And like I said, my thoughts, I enjoy it, and like I said, I'm not going to give a score. I can't give this a score. It's good, but I'm not giving scores anymore. I don't want to grade stuff. I don't want to put it up on a point scale or anything like I used to do in my video game reviews. I just want to give my final thoughts. Do I recommend this movie? Yes, I do. I recommend this movie. If you love animated movies, if you love Summer Wars, if you love The Girl Who Looked Through Time, if you love practically any Hayao Miyazaki Studio Ghibli movie, if you like any story that could be emotional, get you enthralled in the characters, and get you to feel like their emotions and be happy and sad and all that, I recommend you get this movie. I recommend you watch this movie because it is a good experience. It is an interesting experience, and ever since I watched it, I cannot get the movie off my mind for the most part. It comes and it goes, but it's like a lot of life lessons I think I've learned from this movie. And I'm not a parent. I'm not like anything. I'm not like Hana, but I can see like something about One Day When I Am a Parent, and like, seeing like how she goes through her problem. And if I was in a similar situation, like, you know, you feel for the character, you feel for Ame and Yuki having to be raised as these children. They're also wolves, and the life decisions they have to make, and the conflicts they have, and the happiness, and the sadness, and everything that goes on with every character in this movie. My final thoughts on this: I loved Wolf Children, and I'm looking forward to the next Mamoru Hasoda's film, regardless of what it is. I still have to see A Girl Who Left Her Time, but I'm waiting for that next film. And like I said, this was a darn good movie, and I recommend it wholeheartedly to anyone out there who likes anime, and especially anime movies. My name is SnipingIsFun. I hope you guys like this review. I'm hoping one day to get more into more anime reviews and manga reviews. This is a good start for me to do that. I hope you guys liked it. Please subscribe if you want to. Peace. Have a nice day.